Hi everyone. So we're getting ready. I'm just going to turn this down. We're getting ready to do our Pwani, which means beach. And it's a beach carry-all. Was speaking to some people in the group the other night, Sunday night, and we were talking, and I was saying it would be great as any type of carry-all. And somebody mentioned a diaper bag, which I also thought was perfect because there was a lot of room for so much in there. So the pattern is actually a lot bigger than it may appear in the picture. And I'm hoping that it's something that once you guys make it, you'll find a number of different uses for it. So throughout this video, I will not be giving any um, kind of measurements. I may be giving a couple, but no real measurements, maybe for the straps or something like that, but not for the dimensions of the bag, because I am broadcasting this across multiple platforms. So I will include the link to the pattern for those who don't have it in the show notes once the video is over. This will be a 3-night sew along, so it will start every night for the next 3 nights at 7 p.m. And tonight we're just going to be talking about cutting and interfacing. So we're just going to be preparing our pieces. We'll talk about it. We more than likely won't interface every single piece, but that'll be your homework. But we'll talk about the pieces to be cut, and I'll give you some tips in case you want to cut your fabric and it's directional. The material that I'll be using is the one that was included in the box for the April Sew Your Bag box. And so in that box, this is the material I'll be using. I will also post a link to the material in the show notes below, which are in my shop. So let's get started. I can see that we have a couple of people. Hey, Nancy, how are you? I'm so glad you got your box. So let's get started. So let's take a look first at what the bag actually is, and we'll talk about a couple of components of the bag, and then we'll start cutting it up and we'll see how everything fits together. So tonight is going to be, like I mentioned, interfacing and cutting. Tomorrow evening we will do part 2, which is sewing the exterior. And the last night we will be talking about how to create the lining piece, along with how to put the whole bag together. So tomorrow may be a little bit intense because we're going to talk about the straps, but hang in there with me. This is all recorded. You can come back and look at it at your own pace, and let's get started. So in looking at the bag, you can see it's a pretty hefty little bag. For this particular bag, we'll be learning some skills such as how to create this, and it is a double. If you can see that there's like the fabric is here, and then we have a little strap piece underneath, so we're creating sort of that border. Hi, Vignette. We'll be creating that border on the strap, and we'll be attaching it to this bottom border that goes all the way around the bag. See, it goes all the way around the bag. And in the instructions, the bottom piece here will also be the same. So it will be this purple waterproof canvas. So this was a sample bag that I made, and I made mine out of the actual fabric, but I believe that if you use waterproof canvas, that way you can put it down. It's more durable, it's more rugged, especially if you're looking at it as something that's going to be truly a carry-all for anything. You don't want to have to worry about the bottom of your bag. It does use minimum hardware, so we will be using a zipper, and there will be a zipper end that we'll need to attach. In the kit, you got everything that you needed. So in the kit, we got all of the fabric, the waterproof canvas. There is foam in here, which makes it kind of squishy. You did get the zipper as well as the zipper end, and it's everything you need, and the interfacing. So the strap, and I'll show you the other side of it, looks like that on the back side, but on the front side, it has that double strap. Okay. Inside the bag, we only did 2 pockets. So just trying to show you a different way of doing a pocket. All of these skills, by the way, are transferable to other bags you may have, which is what's great. You learn the skill once, you look for other opportunities to apply it, and you can make a bag your very, very own. So I'm just going to turn this inside out. I think maybe what I should do is have 2 bags, and then I can do something like through the magic of TV, and then whip the other one up. So we're going to learn how to make a slip pocket. So this will be a slip pocket. Instead of attaching it up here to the body of the bag, and then it's just like a square or rectangle, I've attached it in such a way that it gets sewed into the seam, and I have 2 pockets. So there's one here and one here. We'll be learning how to stitch it a little bit different down the middle, and in this way it looks a little bit more professional, so we don't have like stitching and it looks like a beginner bag. We're just stepping it up a notch, and you can make it as tall or as deep as you want and as many pockets as you would like. Bag, 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 all the bags. And then underneath the zipper pocket we have this other pocket, and it is a U-shaped type of pocket, but it is deep. It goes almost all the way down to the bottom as well, and it's to be able to very quickly get what you need in that pocket. It does actually sit underneath the zipper closure. So this is a zipper closure. It does sit underneath that zipper closure, and because it sits underneath there, it keeps a little bit extra. You actually have to lift this up to get in there, but I want it to be deep enough that if you just want to stick your hand in there, you could. We will be doing the zipper closure, and this is it, and it's attached to this top border. So we're splitting our lining into 2 pieces, and we will be learning how to make this zipper closure that goes at the top. This is a nice way to add a zipper closure where it's recessed. So it's a recessed type of zipper closure as opposed to adding a zipper to the top right here. The other nice thing about adding it in the body of the bag here is that you're keeping the bulk at the top to a minimum, right? Because we have to top stitch up here. We have to do so many things up here. And by recessing it down, it's actually very nice. When I close my zipper, what I also do is these types of bags, when I carry them, I rest my umbrella. So I know some people will put umbrella in the bag. I rest it on top. So I just zip it up and rest my umbrella right on top there. And instead of putting it inside my bag, and it's always available to me very easily. To turn around, I'm thinking of putting, okay, so there was a question. That's what I'm off to the side reading in case anybody can. It says, can I ask in advance if it's going to be hard to turn around? I'm assuming that you mean turn inside out. So you're thinking of putting Insulbrite in the lining to make it into a cooler. That is amazing. So it shouldn't be, because Insulbrite is thin. So Insulbrite is like, it's sort of like a fleece kind of weight for those people who don't know what it is. And it shouldn't be easy to turn it inside out. And I'll tell you why. So I'm going to turn this back around. It's very big, and waterproof canvas is very stiff, right? But the nice thing about it is because it's so big, it's easy. The stiffness isn't as bad as when you do like a smaller bag and you're trying to turn it around. So if you're using Insulbrite to make it as a cooler, which is what was mentioned, the pocket that's on the inside of the bag, if you measure it, it's big. So we're turning it through this huge pocket right here. And I left mine open. So if you just stick your hand in there, you should be able to put through that. And it's a big, big opening right there. So if you do that, it should not be difficult at all to turn it through because of the thickness of Insulbrite. So if I don't understand, hi, Susan. No, I can't see your name on Facebook. I am on YouTube, by the way. So if anybody would prefer to be on YouTube, that's fine. I am cross-posting this, or streaming, it's called, cross-streaming it. So it should be very easy with the Insulbrite because it is a fleece type of weight. And it's a huge bag, and that pocket on the inside is very big. So if you look at the measurements of the pocket, you'll see how big it is. Okay, so that's going to be our bag. And so we're going to begin cutting this. So I will mention to you, I know that some people have problems. I don't know why, but I always say give StreamYard permission and I can see your name. So for example, I can see Vignette. If you get frustrated, when you join, just say hi and tell me what your name is. And then I'll kind of try to remember who's talking. Hey, Susan, you moved to YouTube. Thank you, Susan. Hey, Crafty Whitney. She's already finished this. So Whitney, what's amazing is Whitney actually posted a picture in the group, and I'm gonna try to grab the picture and show it on Instagram. But I should have really grabbed it so you guys can see it here on screen. I will remember to do that for next time. But it's bigger, and it was interesting when we had the group meetup on Sunday, and I showed the bag. Actually showed it. People said, "Wow, I didn't realize it was that big." So you can put it, you can put quite a couple of towels in there or whatever you want to carry around. It's what I did actually is I have this 18-inch ruler. And so when I made the bag, I thought of it more as I don't know if you can see that. I thought of it more as a bag that I could use if I was going to a craft show and I could stick my ruler in there. And I also have a small like foldable cutting mat and I could stick that in there too. So that was kind of the inspiration of how it all started. It started with that ruler. So thanks for that, Whitney. And thank you guys, Susan and Whitney, for joining on YouTube. This also helps me know that my YouTube is working. And also, if you hear any feedback, you can let me know that as well so I can cut my mic. But I think I have the mic situation under control, although every now and then it does creep in. So let's go to the cutting mat. And hopefully you guys can still hear me. If you can't, let me know. And for those people who are either new, I know a lot of you are subscribers, but just let me know where you're from. Sound is great. Thank you, Whitney. Let me know where you're from. We were talking a little bit about this in the group as well, that different locations were having different weather. We have somebody who's out in Colorado and she had snow and I had 92-degree weather, and somebody else who was in Texas said, "Oh, that's nothing. We had 100 and something today." So let me know where you're from. Thank you, Susan. All right. So in the kit, you're going to get some foam. You will get the fabric. You will get the zipper that we'll talk about in a little while. And you will get, this one's a big piece, but you will get a piece of waterproof canvas, right? So everything complements each other in some way. The zipper is a green color, and you'll see that when we get to it. Also in the instructions, there is a cutting chart and as well as written cutting instructions. And the last thing that we would get is interfacing. So I don't have the interfacing right out now, but we will get interfacing. So what I'll do is I will get some of that and set my foam aside. So when we're looking at the fabric itself, and this is for anybody who may be using directional fabric, this is some Ankara inspired fabric. And so it does have a direction. Sometimes it's just free forming. If you want your fabric to look a certain way, for example, when I cut the bag, this bag, I wanted it to look like mountains or peaks. So I cut it going up, but I could have very easily, instead of cutting it this way, I could have very easily turned the fabric sideways, and then it would look like stripes going left and right. Or I could even do it so they looked more like valleys and turned it this way, right? What I will say to you is if you're going to cut, hi, I don't know who Facebook user is, but hi, let me know your name. What you can do is just measure out your pieces before you cut them. So if you have to take a semi-permanent marker, a chalk pen, whatever, on the wrong side, just draw the dimensions of what you need to make sure. When I put the instructions in, I go according to 1 yard. So it is cut in 1 yard piece. And so I'm going with the selvage either at the top or the bottom, and I'm not going crosswise. So just make sure you measure that out. The other thing that I recommend that you do, which is what we will do, is we will cut the straps first. So we'll make sure that we get our straps cut, and we'll do those first, and then we will cut the other pieces. So I do have a couple hundred over here rotary cutters. You can cut this with a scissor and a ruler. If you want, you can draw a line to get what you want as far as the dimensions. So whatever makes it easier for you when you're cutting it. So since I'm going to cut the straps first, I'm just going to fold my piece in half and I'm going to cut my strap. Now the strap that I'm going to cut right now is going to be for the front or the overlay piece of the strap. So it will be for this piece right here, right? The bottom piece I'm going to cut from waterproof canvas and it is wider. So I'm going to cut this piece first. And I'm going to square up one of my ends just to make sure on this side, and I'm just going to cut. Now, when we do the strap, one of the things also that we want to do is, because it is fabric, I'm not going to be interfacing the strap, the fabric piece. What I will be using is a strip of waterproof canvas for the strap. So just to show you what I mean, is this will be our strap. This will be our strap piece that we're going to make. But to reinforce it so that there's no stretch, I'm going to have you lay a piece of waterproof canvas down the middle of it. So in the directions, and if anybody downloaded this, it says 1, but now it should say 2. So depending on when you downloaded it, it should be 2 pieces, but we're going to cut a piece to go down the middle. And that way, as you're carrying your bag, you don't have any stretch on your strap. The other reason that I added is because if you don't interface this, when you put it through the sewing machine, it could tend to look a little puckered or not as smooth. But with the waterproof canvas, it helps to keep it smooth. If you want, you can interface the entire strap. I do not personally like interfacing straps, so I use waterproof canvas. You can also use a piece of foam if you would like on the inside of that, and just cut it the way that I specify, which is a little bit smaller. So I've cut one strap and I'm just going to cut the next one. Okay, and I'm going to set that to the side. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to be cutting my front and my back tops. So when we look at the bag, we have this piece on top and then we have this piece on the bottom, the waterproof canvas. I'm cutting this top here, and then I will be cutting the side tops. And when I'm done, I'll start cutting up my waterproof canvas, but I'm cutting the top here for the front and back. They are exactly the same size. If you are fussy, you can cut them to look exactly the same. So if you want to cut them exactly the same, you can do that. Mine, I think, actually came out almost the same. No, they're a little bit different because there's gold there, and you can see they're different. But if you are picky like that, you can cut them so that they are the same. I'll tell you a little bit about how to do that, because you may have a fabric. I will say to you, though, if you're trying to make them the same, remember one thing is that we're putting that strap over it. So by putting the strap over it, the positioning has to be almost like perfect, right? Because we're putting this over it. So the front and back may not look exactly the same if you don't position these exactly in the same place as well. But it's up to you if you'd like to make them look the same. Nobody's going to notice. That's all I'm going to say. Nobody's going to notice if they're different. So in the layout I give you, I have you cut it. I have you cut it with one, not folded, but with one layer of fabric. So I have you open it up like this. And then I have you cut 2 pieces with one layer of fabric. Okay, so I have you do this. I have you measure your fabric. It's up to you if you want to include this selvage here. I'm going to cut mine off. I don't mind the logo. I actually like the logo, but I'm going to cut this off. So when I measure it, I'm going to measure it starting down here. It is about 1/4 of an inch. So if I measure it, it is about 1/4 of an inch wide. But if you notice on the logo itself, the wording, it falls past that 1/4 of an inch. So you'll end up seeing, I'll show you here. Okay. The wording actually goes above this line here. So from the bottom to here, is going to be 1/4 of an inch. But if you don't cut it off, then you're going to see a piece of the wording. So if that bothers you, it doesn't bother me, but I am going to cut mine off. So when I'm cutting this, I'm going to make sure to account a little bit for that, right? So I'm just going to put something to weight this thing down, just like that. And then you can cut it. We will be using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, so that's why I said the 1/4 of an inch. If you're using a 1/2 an inch, you probably won't even get the words, if that's not what you want. Okay. So just making sure it's straight. I'm going to come back and remeasure it. Now, the best way if you're going to do a single layer, which is what I gave you, is I use 2 rulers. You can actually use a marking tool. So you can grab yourself a marking tool and you can measure down this way and then across this way to get the measurements that you need. Or the other thing you can do is I'm going to just grab another ruler here. If I can find it. I only have 2 rulers hanging out. Is you can grab another ruler like this one and you can create a right angle. Right, so this one's pretty big. You can do this and then just create a little right angle in mine. It may be hard to see, but right here is a right angle and measure it that way. So if you want to get another ruler, you can do that as well and then get the dimensions that you want. All right, and then what you would do is you would mark it just like that, and then you'd cut it out. So the question that, and I'm not sure who this is, but the question was, do you ever iron and starch the fabric before cutting? So I do not. However, I guess a good rule of thumb is to treat the fabric like you would treat it if you were going to use it. So for example, if it was a dress, you would pre-wash the fabric. You could pre-wash this as well and dry it and then iron it. I don't. That's just a personal preference. I don't want to discourage anybody. This does not have a lot of wrinkles in it, so I don't starch it usually, and I don't iron it. If it has a lot of wrinkles, I will iron it. And that's because I want to get these as straight as possible, but this doesn't have a lot of wrinkles, so I don't really worry about it. And once I put the interfacing on, all the wrinkles will come out anyway, because I iron the back of the fabric to warm it up for the interface that I'm going to lay on top. So, but treat it as you would the way you're going to use it. So if it's something that you would like to do, and I'm going to wash this bag, then I actually say wash it. I don't, because I don't wash my bags. I spot clean them if they need to, but you can wash this particular fabric. You can wash it. I do recommend that if possible that you let it line dry, just to not create fading, because a dryer will fade fabric, but you can dry it as well if you have to, or if you want to. So that was an excellent question. I thought that was you, Nancy. Excellent question, Nancy. So do you starch yours, Nancy? Did you ask the questions? I wonder, do you starch yours? Yeah, I never thought about it. I guess when I sew bags, I just want to sew. So I just get to it. I don't know. Does anybody else starch theirs? Let's take a quick poll on whether or not to starch or not to starch. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, in the interest of time, is I'm actually going to cut my pieces 2 at a time. So I folded this in half, just like that. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces because I know that I need one for the front and I need one for the back. So just want to check out the side that I cut the straps off of, because that's the clean edge. So I don't know if anybody else starches. Okay, now I'm just going to line this up. I need a front and a back, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut the front and the back. Once again, I did fold it in half to do this. So I'm going to use 2 rulers just to make sure that I get this measured exactly right. All right, so let's do this. Now, by using two rulers, and to make sure that this doesn't, like this pivot, so you're not quite sure if it's a straight line, is you lay one and then you grab your other ruler, which is this ruler, and you can line it up against the bottom of your cutting mat at the dimensions that you want. So I'm going to line this up at the dimensions I want, and make sure, let's see if I can tell you, make sure when you're lining it up that you get the cross hatches of your ruler, top and bottom, against whatever the nearest line is. So you want to make sure you line it up. So if you have to readjust your fabric, then you need then do that. And then I should get a square piece. I actually at the bottom also, like I mentioned, I'm going to cut off the salvage. So because I'm cutting off the salvage, I'm starting a little bit lower down than where I need to be, so I can cut that off. So I'm making sure I line up my ruler down here. And then I make sure this ruler is touching that ruler so that they're totally perpendicular. And I actually just stick a weight on it. So mine happens to be my clip thing. So I think that's Nancy says she irons. Yes, she usually she makes sure to get the creases out. So she irons everything, which is not a bad idea. All right. So I'm just going to double check my measurements before I cut, right? So you measure twice, cut once. So I'm just going to double check. And go up. Oop, I think I counted wrong. So I'm a little bit big on the top here. Now I'm second guessing myself. Yep. Okay. And then this one is going to be this. And I just want to make sure I have this perfect at a right angle. Like I said, if you have to draw it, then draw it on here and make sure that you have it. Now, I'm not going to be able to get to that corner, but I will get close enough. You can use a scissor if you would like to. I'm going to use my rotary cutter to cut this out. And I'm just going to get close. It's not, because of the ruler, it's not going to allow me to get into that corner. And then I'm just going to cut this across and just move my fingers out of the way. Okay. So I'm just going to do that. And then I'm going to cut off that selvage of the bottom that I have. So what time is it where everybody is? Hello. Okay. So Susan says, so Nancy said the vote is in. So it's sort of like a little bit split. Nancy says she irons and starches to get the creases out. And then Susan says she irons for sure, but does not starch. So kind of half and half here. Okay, so yeah, so it says dog is ready for her walk. I wish I could tell you it was one. It's three. So three of them are ready for their walk. Their walk is at 7:30. So yes, they are ready for their walk. Luckily, it's not my night to walk, so I'm good. So I just want to move this over because I'm trying to make sure that I trying to make sure that I don't cut into that. And then make sure I still have enough on this side. Okay. Good. And then I'm just going to cut this. Like I said, I want to cut that selvage off. So. And the dogs are very noisy, but the cat, luckily, is very quiet tonight. I have 2 cats as well. And I have one who doesn't like to be alone. So because she doesn't like to be alone, she would normally scratch at either the door or the window. But she doesn't seem to want me tonight. So I think I'm good. So I'm just going to cut this selvage off. It's longer than my ruler, so I just want to make sure I get that. And I'm not worried at the bottom that it has a little piece of the wording over here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little piece of the wording. I'm not worried about that because, like I said, I do have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that will be taken in the seam allowance. So that now is my front and back, and I will set them to the side. I don't know why StreamYard is not liking the names. So that's 2 pieces down. So the next 2 pieces that we're going to cut are going to be the side pieces here. And so I'll do those the same way. The only thing is, I'll do it a little bit different, because the only thing is about those side pieces is, and this is important. Well, it's a bag, but you know, notice the direction. I don't know if you can see that the direction of the fabric is going in the same direction as the front and the back. So when you cut this, make sure that you cut it in the same direction, because you really don't want, I mean, it doesn't matter if you want it that way. It's your design, do what you want. But see how this goes up and down? I don't want to cut my side pieces going left to right, because I want them to, all my pieces to go in the same direction. So I'm going to cut this, but I don't think it's enough for me to, I'll check it. I don't think it's enough for me to be able to cut 2 pieces at once because of the way that I'm going to cut it. So I'm trying to use the least amount of fabric is really what I'm trying to do. And I think I may have enough. Yep, I can do that. So I'm going to cut 2 of these as well, and I'm going to cut them along this edge. So when you look at the directions, it actually does it so you have a little bit left over. So I'm going to cut those 2 pieces of fabric. And then because it's longer than it needs to be, I'm just going to cut it the length that it needs to be, or the height that it needs to be. And I don't worry that they're not exactly the same. So I don't know if you notice, I'm not worrying about that they're exactly the same. I just worried about the direction of the fabric. So I just made sure. So I wanted to make sure that these pieces were cut in the same direction as these pieces. And when you're sewing them, you want to make sure also that they're cut in the same direction. So you don't want to have this necessarily, like I said, it's up to you if you want that. You don't want these upside down and then these right side up. So you want to make sure that they're cut in the same direction. Okay, so I'm going to put, and there's 2 of them, so I cut them both at the same time. So there's 2 of them. In the instructions in the back, you will find little pieces of paper that you can attach to each piece, so you'll know. So the question was, so we have to treat it like correct. So you treat it just like a directional fabric. I don't have a directional fabric down here to show you because I stay away from them. But directional fabrics normally, it's sort of like if you look at words going, you know, you can read the words this way or this way, depending on, you know, the language, but you'll read the words this way, right? A directional fabric, if you turn it upside down, the words are upside down. So then what happens then is the print is upside down. So you can have some images being upside down. And that's why it's called directional, because it has to be in a specific direction when you go to use it so that it's right side up. So that's why it's directional. But yes, I treat it exactly like it's directional. But in this case, you can do what you want, right? It's not, it is a directional fabric, but if you wanted to do it left to right, you can do that as well on the side, because then that would be your design feature that you're using. Okay, so now I cut those two pieces. And then I'm going to cut the side pieces. We don't have to worry about, so we've cut the front, the back, we've cut the side, we've cut the strap. So what we're going to cut next is we're going to cut, and we'll look in here, this zipper closure piece right here. It has a top and it has a bottom. The bottom is waterproof canvas, but the top piece is the exterior fabric. So I'm going to cut this. If you look at it, you can see my print is running this way, but you can have it running this way if you want. It doesn't matter. It's such a small piece that it doesn't really matter. So we're going to cut this piece, and then we're also going to cut these pieces here, right? Because inside the bag, you'll be able to see that there's a bordering that goes all the way around. I'll try to show it to you on this side. This side is probably easier. Can you see that there's a bordering? So this bordering goes all the way around. So we'll need to cut the little piece here and the little piece on the side, as well as the top piece for this. So like I said, I don't worry about the zipper closure. I do want to make sure, however, the pieces that are on the inside of the bag are up and down like my fabric is. So if that makes sense, like I want it to be this way, because when it's in the bag, you're going to see it. It should all be facing upward or downward, whatever direction you did the front and the back and the sides. So I will cut those pieces now. So in the direction, they're called, if anybody's looking, it's the lining. It's called the lining front, back, top. And those are those little pieces that go around. So it's the lining front, back, top, or the lining side, top. So those are the pieces that I'm going to be cutting. So I'll see if I can get it. So let's do it this way. So what I'm going to do is because I want them to face in the same direction, right? So they should be facing up like this. So I'm going to cut two of them this way. And because I cut my bottoms together here, this is actually the width. It should be exactly the width of my front and my back. So I'm just going to take this off camera just a little bit to measure and make sure. No, it's not. It's a little shorter because I cut it already. So I can't do that. So we'll get it done. So I'm going to do this. And I don't want to drive myself crazy, so I'm going to lay it flat and do it. I'll cut them one at a time, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm trying to align the bottom, and the center crease on this isn't exactly centered. So let's do this. And then I'm going to use my big ruler. And I'm going to cut this. Perfect. And let's get this cut. So I'm just going to make sure I count right. I've got a little nick over here. All right. I have a little nick on that side. So let me do it on this side because of the way that I cut it. So let me do it on this side. There's a little bit of a tiny, it's hard to see, but it's a little nick in the corner when I cut it out. So let's do it this way. Great. Okay. hopefully. It's just going to be odd to cut it on this side because I almost have to reach across myself. Well, actually, if I do it this, yeah, I'm going to have to reach across myself, so it's fine. Looking for, it's actually looking for the other rotary cutter. Okay. And once again, you can draw a line and do this. And so I'm just cutting one and then I'll cut the other one. Only because I want to make sure that they are facing upward like I did the front. So I'm just cutting it that way. And in the directions, it has you cut it that way. If you look at the chart, it has you cut it this way where it's one piece at a time. And I cut this a little bit bigger. So once I measure, so Varna says, what? Now you're being old and Nick won't ship. Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to be precise because the little nick will be within the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. It's just that it was folding in, so it was driving me crazy. So it was just my little bit of OCD. So are you cutting the lining top accent piece? Yes, that's what I'm cutting. That's this piece now. Oh, I'm sorry, Vonnie. You did say listen, lady, you we're talking. I know that you're with me. You get what's going on with the OCD where you're like, okay. I know you're probably gonna fussy cut this, Varna. You're not kidding anybody. Once you measure, move the other ruler over and cut. Okay. I think I already cut, so I don't know quite what that means. But anyway, I'm gonna cut this at the length that I need. I cut it a little bit longer, so only because my ruler was too short, so I cut it a little bit longer. I think I knew what the person was. Okay, so I think I know what you were saying. When I was cutting it, once I had one ruler, put the other ruler next to it, and then cut. And I think that's what you mean. So I'll do that, and hopefully, that is what you mean. I just want to make sure this is cut even. Because when I cut it into the piece. So I just want to make sure it's even at the bottom over here. Okay. So I think this is what you were saying. So this is one of those top side pieces. And let's see if this is what you were saying. And you can tell me if this is what you meant. I see a yes, but I don't know if didn't immediately click in my brain. So hopefully let's do it again. And then maybe other people are like me where it didn't click. So I'm going to just weight that down. And so what she's saying is that once I measure the sides, I'm just going to write this down. Once I measure here where I need it to be, so I align this edge, and instead of having to cross just like that, right? So instead of having to cross over this way and cut, what she's saying is once I have that ruler in place, put this ruler, another ruler directly next to it. So it sits right next to it, exactly where it is. Then I should be able to remove the first ruler, which is this ruler here, and I'll be cutting it at the measurement that I need. So I think that that's what I heard you say, or read what you said. And so now I have it exactly at the measurement that I need. So I think that was Nancy again. Great tip. So I just want to make sure that I get this the same as the other one. So I just want to measure it out. Over here and make sure I get it. Okay. All right. So that I'm not driving myself crazy. So I have right now these two pieces here. And these two pieces, once again, are going to be these two pieces on the top. So that's what I cut, those two pieces right there. I now need to cut two for the side. And you can see the direction of it is going in the upward direction, like my front and my back. So I'm just going to clip those together. And then I'm going to do the same for the side pieces. So she says, yes, that way you don't risk cutting yourself. And yes, it is Nancy. Ask me how I learned that. Okay, Nancy, how did you learn that? How did you learn that? I need to send some of you guys the invite so you can join me and give some tips with me. Because I can do that. I can invite as many people as I want. Okay. So let's do the side pieces. But Devonna says this. Vonnie, you're such a troublemaker. She goes the same way I did. That's funny. Okay. So let's cut the the side pieces. So I'll do that. That's easy. I can do it from this little tiny piece here because I know how wide it needs to be. And I'm just gonna cut a strip. I'm not gonna worry as much. I just want to make it the width that I need it, and then I'll just cut it. And I'm just going to cut this side because it's crooked. So that's the only reason I'm cutting this other side, because I can see that it's crooked. Okay. And I'm going to need two of these pieces. So I'm going to cut two of them. So yes, definitely you could, I could do this if I wanted to. I could fold it in half. And if it was the right amount. And I'm going to cut off that border. So I'm starting a little bit before that. And I'm going to do that. And I can actually cut this like this. Sometimes I do it like that because if you cut them from the raw edge and leave the fold, sometimes you end up with a little extra fabric that you can use for something else. And I think the last video we were talking about, like, I wanted to try something called crumb quilting. I think that's what Nancy told me it was called. And so the little scraps will probably do very well for that. So I can do that, and then I can put it here. And I'm not cutting the fold. I'm not cutting from the fold this way. I'm cutting from the raw edges that way. And the reason I do this because then I'll end up with another like little small piece you can use for anybody just quilting. So I always try to do it this way, right? So then now if I unfold this, I have a little piece of fabric that I can save if I want to. All right, so these two pieces will be for that top. And of course so these two pieces will be for right here. So I'm going to set those to the side. Nancy said there was a lot of blood. Yeah, that's thank you for the tip because I don't want blood. I don't really want that. There's nothing worse because then you're trying to get that out of your fabric, which isn't easy. Okay, So we've cut the front. We have to cut the zipper. So on the instructions, that's called the zipper closure. And I cut the zipper closure smaller than the actual width of the bag because I want to create a gap. So if I were to zip this up, I took out the pull, the zipper pull. But if I were to zip it up here, hopefully you can see, there's a little gap here and there'll be a gap on the other side. That's intentional. I don't like to make it the full width because what happens is I can't get my hand in there if I need to pull it and unzip it. So I try to leave room for me to stick my hand in there and pull it open. And that's the only reason that I create that gap. But other patterns do the same. I don't know why they leave it, but that's why I leave it that way. So the zipper closure is going to be, like I said, just a little bit smaller. Excuse me. And it's called zipper closure. So we will need 2 of those. So let's cut 2. So make sure I have enough fabric here. I'm cutting it odd. And like I said, it doesn't matter the direction. So if you're doing it, it doesn't matter if it goes this way or this way. It's inside the bag. You're not going to notice. And it doesn't necessarily align. If you are using directional fabric, the question then becomes, do you want the print to be facing towards the bag or in towards the zipper part? Some people, what they do is that they will take the dimensions of one of the zipper closures. So let's say it's 2 inches wide, then they'll double it, right? So if it's 2 inches this way, they'll double it and cut a piece that's 4 inches and then cut it down the middle. And then they have 2 pieces that are 2 inches wide so that when they put the zipper together, it looks like one piece. So I tend to do that because I like the way that it looks, but it's not necessary. So in this case, if you just take, according to the directions, if you take what I'm calling the height measurement and you double that height and then use the same length, you will end up, when you cut it in half, you'll end up with 2 pieces. And when they meet in the middle, if you put your zipper right in the middle, it looks almost like it was fussy cut. It wasn't, but it looks like it was. So I can show you that to make sure I have enough here. So that's not going to be enough. This should be enough. This should be more than enough. Okay. So I'm going to cut this, and I need to double the height of my directions, right? So read the directions, and you're going to double it. So I'm going to cut it twice as big. So I got the long ruler going on here. Okay, so that's twice the size if I did it right. Of course I didn't. Okay, so we can't use that. I cut it a little bit too small. So let's do this again. I mean, it doesn't matter. I could have still used it. My zipper would have been just a little bit more shadow, but that's okay. Let's just, that was that whole measure twice, cut once thing that I didn't do. Okay, so let's do it again. So this should be twice. That's twice. I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but I've cut something twice and still cut it wrong both times. So this is twice, and I'm just going to make sure that it measures the length that I want. So I'm just going to make sure the length is correct, and then I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to put interfacing on the back of this, but I also suggest that you mark, sorry, there's something happening here. I also suggest that you mark where your center is once you cut it in half. So I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So now this is the height and width. So now what I'm going to do is cut it right down the middle. So you just take whatever your measurement is. It's the right width, right, this way. And then I'm just going to cut this in half. Yes, my crazy is starting to sink in here with a little bit. Okay. So now I'm just going to cut this right in half. So I'm going to go right in the middle. Okay. And when you're cutting it in half, so it's right in half. Because it's the zipper inside, I don't know if you can see it. See, it looks like it's a continuous piece. So what I normally do is I would flip it over. I actually you do like this. And I would draw like a little arrow somewhere like this. So I'm drawing an arrow over here and an arrow over here. I'm going to put interfacing on it. So I'm going to redo it when I do the interfacing. And I know that that's the center. So when I sew it, when I sew the pieces together, I have to make sure that I put the zipper on this side and on this side, because that's the center. See you later, Vaughn. Enjoy your dinner. And then that way, when I sew, it's like that. It's going to be a little bit, it won't be exactly the same, but it will give the appearance that it is continuous, because we will be putting a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So it'll fall under a certain amount, but it gives the illusion that it was like, it's still one piece when you put the zipper in. So I'll give it to a quilter. So funny. Okay, so I'm going to put these pieces away. This was the zipper closure. This was the top piece of the zipper. And then we're going to cut 2 of these same pieces for the underside, just to match the lining. That's the reason we do it in waterproof canvas, so that the lining looks like it's one cohesive color or fabric. You can definitely, depending if you don't have enough, you can definitely do the top and bottom of the zipper pocket closure with the same fabric. So if you don't have enough fabric to make it the same color as the lining, you can definitely do it the same color as your other fabric. So I've done that. I'm just going to make sure that I keep myself honest over here and put some checks next to the things that I've done. And good. So the next thing we're going to cut is the internal pocket, and we actually have 2 pockets that we need to cut. And what I have you do for the internal pocket, and this is kind of, it's correct. So I have you cut 3 pieces that are this fabric and 1 piece that's the waterproof canvas. So the reason I have you cut 3 pieces that's that's the exterior fabric is because, turn this inside out. And it seems like it doesn't make sense when you look at it, because everything seems like it should be even numbers, like 2 and 2 and 1 and 1. But the reason that I have you cut it that way is because for the slip pocket itself, for this piece here, the underside here is waterproof canvas. So I really only need 1 piece for this. And then for the other pocket on the other side, I need a piece that's this facing. So it's over here. And then this is the back piece. So that's why I have you cut 3 pieces. So it's 3 pieces. They're the same size, and then we can trim them up. So like I said, it may seem like the numbers are off, but it makes sense, hopefully. So I'll cut 3 in 1. And then let's see the measurements for that pocket. Hopefully I have enough. Okay. And I want them all facing in the same direction. So I know for a fact that this is going to be, I just measured this, so I know it's the right width. So that's one. And I need 2 more. Okay. And I'm going to use my other ruler because I need to know where the top of this is going straight across. Like I said, I know where this was because it went. I measured it off camera, so that's 2. It's 2, and then we need 1 more. And then I think that should be it for our exterior fabric. Once again, you don't have to do it the same direction. If you want, you could do the other piece going up and down. It's totally up to you. These are pockets, so some people like the way that they look when they don't go exactly even. So we will have all of those exterior pieces cut. And these will be the pockets. And like I said, I'm going to cut 1 more piece for the other one, which is out of waterproof canvas. I'm going to clip those together and set them aside. And then that's all that we have to cut for, and we do have a little piece left. So that's all that we have to cut for that. All right. So the next thing that we're going to be cutting is we're going to be cutting the waterproof canvas. So I'm just going to grab a smaller piece that I have here. I know it has wrinkles in it. You can iron waterproof canvas or apply steam. So you can steam it, just put some steam to get the wrinkles out, or lightly iron it. But make sure you do it on the fabric side. So I don't know if you can hear that. That's the fabric side. I'll try to show you it's a dark color. And then there's a waxy side. So if I fold this down, you can see there's a shade variation. This is kind of like the plastic or waxy side. Do not iron on this side. If you iron on this side, it will stick to your iron. It's also good if you wanted to iron it to turn a bag inside out, because it makes it softer, and it makes bags easier to turn inside out. The other thing is, once it cools off, it goes back to the same stiffness. With waterproof canvas, you do not need interfacing, which is what's very, very nice about waterproof canvas, because you save on interfacing. It does cost a little bit more, but the money that it costs you for the waterproof canvas, you save on the cost of interfacing. So I'm going to cut this, and this is not out of my yard. This is just a piece that I had hanging around, so it's more manageable than the yard that I had for the camera. So I'm going to cut off this selvage, and I always cut off the selvage of the waterproof canvas, so I don't leave it on. I don't know if anybody else uses it and leaves it on, but I always cut it off. Waterproof canvas also, I'll show you in a minute, doesn't really have a give. So it is on a smaller bag. It can be difficult, like on one of the bags we did, it can be difficult to turn inside out because there is no give. So what I mean by that is normally if you do like this and you pull at an angle, you can see fabric itself has a stretch. So I'll show you with one of our pockets here. So this is the pocket. So when I pull it this way, you can see how it has, look how much stretch it has. And when I pull it this way, it has some stretch. So there's give to, it's a woven cotton fabric. So any wovens usually have that stretch, or there's also stretch fabrics which have that stretch. Waterproof does not, so there's very little give to it. And especially when you do it like this, either with or against the grain, it doesn't matter. It has no give. So that's why it let's see, question. So that's why it has you know, you have to maybe sometimes heat it up to make it more supple. So the question came in waterproof canvas, right? So it says, why are the waterproof canvas lining pieces cut larger than the front and the back? Okay, so if you look at the waterproof canvas pieces, that's a very good question. And I'll show you. So when we cut the front and the back, we have a border at the bottom, right? So that border on the bottom, I eliminated from the measurements because the top part on the front, I'll show you. Maybe this will, hopefully it'll make sense. I think I did it right. Okay. So I believe this is your question. If I'm not understanding you, please let me know. So the question is, why was the lining piece cut a different measurement than the front and the back? So for the lining pieces, the front and the back, and I'm just checking. These pieces on the bottom are not the same measurement as these pieces on the top, right? So this measurement of this top piece is a different measurement than the one on the bottom. So I didn't cut the top to be this width and then, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it's not this in reverse for the lining. The top piece is actually smaller than this bottom piece that I'm adding. So you'll see that this lining piece should be a little bit longer. Does that make sense? So I'm looking at the measurements because the lining bottom, so this bottom piece is a different, it's a little bit taller by like that much than the front because the trim piece over here is smaller. It's kind of, without giving you the measurements. So what I'm saying is this piece here is shorter than this piece here, which is at the bottom. All right. You can actually see it in the bag. All right. This piece at the top over here is shorter than this piece here. So when I did the lining, if I did the lining, then what would happen is I would have, if I tried to make it, but if you add the two pieces together, the piece from here and the piece from there, and you add the heights together, they should come out to the same number. Okay, so you understand. Okay, good. It's kind of hard. I know it's kind of hard to explain, so I'm glad that you understand. Okay, so now let's go in and let's cut out the bottoms. Yeah, so let's cut out the bottom. We really don't have too much to cut out for this. We have the straps, which we have to cut out, and we have the lining pieces. Right, so I'm going to actually use this piece to cut, excuse me. I'm going to use this piece just to cut the inside first, and then we'll go back. And I have another piece I can use for the strap, but you know, the strap you can cut. And I actually have you cut the strap the full width like I did before, where it's selvage to selvage for the strap, and you cut 2 of those first, and then, but since this looks about the size that I need for the lining piece, I'm just going to use this first. Okay, so this is going to be the lining bottom. So there's a lining side bottom, and then there's also something called the lining front back bottom, and those are the waterproof canvas pieces. So I'm going to cut the front back first, and then I'll cut the side pieces. So this is the front and the back, and then I'll cut the side. So let's cut these first. And hopefully I get this right. So I need to cut 2 of these for the front and the back. Oh, I guess I should make sure that they measure the right amount right across. So let's do the measurement across just to make sure. Hold on. I can cut from the bottom because I can see the bottom where it starts. Okay. So I'm going to have to cut a little bit differently than I normally do. Apologies for this, but I know it seems odd that I'm cutting, but I realize that I can't cut it this way because the width of it is too short for what I need. So I need the width of the bag. All right, and I'm just going to square this up and actually cut it to the size that I need. Okay. I don't know if anybody else is having as much. Some of you guys seem to have difficulty cutting today. Okay. So I can see that it's not square. All right, so that's one piece. Set that to the side. You can definitely, if you wanted to, lay one piece over the other piece and then, you know, cut them that way, because I know people who do that. So they will, for example, take this piece, take the piece that they just cut, which is this one, and normally laying them face down makes it easier to see, and they will clip them. Matching up the sides, the raw edges. Make sure that they're exactly the same size. So if you match the edges like this. And if I explained it to you, I find sometimes explaining is different than showing because there's people who are visual learners. So. So then they match them up like that, right? Because you know that this piece is right. And then what they will do is they will cut those two pieces, and then they know they have the same size. What's nice about this way sometimes also is if you do them right, and especially with waterproof canvas, this piece sits a little bit above, so you can actually press your ruler up against the edge. So you can feel it when it locks in, and then you can just cut like that. And then I'm just going to rotate this and cut the other way. But then you end up with two pieces, and you didn't really have to measure as long as the first one was right, you were good. So then you can put this against this edge like that, and then you can just cut. Because it's right against the edge, and there's enough of a gap, there's like that it cuts, that you can get right there. So some people will do that. I usually double fold, or you can do it, like I said, do individual pieces, but then now I have two of the same piece. So that's going to be my front and back. Okay, so I'm just going to add a clip to that. And then the other piece that I need to do is the sides, right? So that was the other pieces that I needed to make. And then I also need to do underneath the zipper, and then those front accent pieces. So let's do the sides. And the side pieces are listed as, in the directions, it's listing as the lining side. Oh, and we have the bottom. So when you do the bottom, you're going to cut two pieces for the bottom, even though it says lining side bottom. And that's because one bottom is going to be used for the exterior and one is going to be used for the interior. So I'm calling it lining side bottom because I didn't want to have to add another row of the same measurement for you to cut and then say exterior bottom. So I just did it that way. So just so that you know, that's why we're doing it. But let's do the sides. And that should be the lining side. I'm sorry, the lining side bottom, and then the bottoms you're going to also cut too. So the lining side bottoms are going to cut. So let's cut those. I'm trying to see if this is big enough. Yeah, this one's not. Okay. So I'm just going to cut this right here. Only because I know that it's, I just want this strip because it's big enough for me to cut one of my sides with. So I'm going to cut my side using this. I'm just going to square it up on this side so that we can cut it. And then I'll show you how I'm going to interface this. And these will be the bottom pieces of the tops. I'll show you what these side pieces are. So the lining side bottom, you cut two. Yeah, okay. So I think I confused myself when I did this, but the lining side bottom, yes, I'm cutting two. So this piece that I'm cutting are going to be this piece, the side, and it's the bottom half, not the top half. But then you're also going to cut two bottoms, so two of these pieces in waterproof canvas, because your exterior is going to be waterproof canvas. Mine is fabric, but yours is going to be waterproof canvas. And then the lining needs a bottom as well. So when you look under bottom, you'll see that I cut two pieces of waterproof canvas because I need one for the inside and one for the outside of the bag. So I'm sorry if I caused you some confusion there. So that was in response to this question. So I'm cutting the side for this. Not anybody else, but I. So that's one piece for the bottom, and I need another piece for the bottom. So I turn it upside down because I don't like the, because I didn't iron it, there's a curl to it. So that's why I'm cutting it. You know, it doesn't matter which side you cut it from. It's just that it's curling. So I cut it from this side. So these are the side pieces that I'm cutting for the inside of the bag. Okay. So that's these two pieces that are for the side of the bag. I'm gonna clip those. I put clips just so that you know for myself, because I've thrown things away that I've cut because I just thought it was scrap fabric. So I put clips in them so that I know what's it's actually a piece of my pattern, and for no other reason. Okay. So now we've cut those. Let's cut the bottom piece. So we can get that, and hopefully I have enough width here. Yeah, I do. Okay. So I'm going to cut the bottom piece. I'm going to make sure I cut off that selvage, but I have plenty here. So, and you will need two. Of these pieces. So you will need two. So I'm going to simply cut two, and then once I cut them, I'll trim them down to the size that I need. And they're exactly the same size, so. I need to put another sharp blade in here to sharpen my blade. Has anybody ever tried? I want to order one of those. I see them all the time. They're like blade sharpeners for rotary cutters. So I guess you can sharpen the edges of those. I have a manual one that doesn't work so well, but I go through a lot of blades. But there's one that's like automatic, and I thought I'm going to give that a try. There are some of, like, for example, fabric doesn't really dull it, but like when you're using things like vinyl or leather, your blades get dull a lot quicker. And waterproof canvas. So these are the bottoms, and I'm just going to cut them to the length that I need. I'm going to cut off that selvage edge. So I'm going to cut this edge off here, and then I'm just going to cut it to the length that I need. So it's a lot longer, my pieces, which is fine. I just, you know, like I said, I use a piece that I had, so. Match those two. So that's one. And that's one piece for the bottom, and I'll cut the one for the lining. It doesn't matter. Like I said, they're all the same. They're the same. They're the same size, so it's not going to matter. So these two pieces are going to be my bottom. One for the front, one for the back. So what are we going to cut next? So let's cut, now that we've cut that, we still have a lining to cut. So remember we cut that pocket lining piece. So let's see if I have enough to cut that pocket lining piece. I don't have enough to cut that. So let's cut the accent pieces first, and then I'll come back. So I'm going to cut these little border pieces that go all the way around. We've already just cut the bottom, but I'm going to cut these little border pieces. And then I have to come back and cut the strap over here. And I have to cut the lining, one lining piece and the underside of your zipper. So I'm going to cut the exterior, they're called accent pieces in the direction. So they'll call front, back, accent bottoms. And then there's a side accent bottom. So those are the pieces that I'm going to cut now out of the waterproof canvas. So the side accent pieces are very small, so I think I can cut them out of here. And we only need two for the side, one for each side. So we're going to cut those out of this. There. Yep. Let me do it this way. Since there's two of them, I think I have enough to cut. Four, two pieces here. And then I can cut them like this. And you'll know which way is, for these when you go to attach them. They're cut, they're not square. So you'll know whether you have it on right because it won't be, they're not square. So, but once again, at the back of the pattern, there's little tabs that you can cut. So that's one. And then I just need one more for the side. And then we'll cut the front and the back bottom. Hey, Miss Arnetta, how are you? It is on YouTube. So if you go there now, it's already there. So it is on YouTube. So I'm streaming to both platforms. So if you want to log off here, thank you for answering her. You can go to, if it's easier, you can go to YouTube, and it is being recorded. So if you missed any part of this, you can come back and look at it. So these two pieces were the bottom accent on the side. So now what I want to do is cut the accent for the front and the back. So those are going to be the longer pieces. Personally, I try not to like fold in half like this. Like I know some people fold in half. If you do, make sure you clip it and you align it, because when you cut it, if there's any waffling, when you unfold it, you may see it do a little bit of a dip. So I actually cut all of these pieces flat like this purposely, because I don't want to have to worry about that that dip. I actually want a straight line. So that's why I cut it. I cut each one separately. So these are going to be the front accent pieces. That I'm going to cut. I take feedback. And people were asking for this, so I said, okay, I'll do it. YouTube just to me seems like a larger audience of people. And I'm not very good, believe it or not, in crowds. And I'm not very good speaking to a wider audience of people. So I don't know. like I can train people and there could be like 30, 40 people in a room, but knowing that I could be potentially broadcasting to millions is just a little off-putting for me. So I it's not my favorite thing to do. So I'll just cut this to the I'm just gonna cut this just to make it easier for myself. I have plenty, but I just want to make a more manageable size for myself while I'm doing this. So that's why I'm doing it this way. But absolutely, you guys can, use two rulers or whatever you need to use to get them. Draw a line. I'm glad that some people are joining also on YouTube because then I know that it's working. And I know that, if the sound is bad, you guys give me immediate reaction. So I love that. Just trying to make this more manageable. I don't need all of this fabric, which is why. So now I can cut these two pieces for the bottom accent pieces. And I'm just double checking, make sure I don't cut anything wrong here. So that's one piece. And we have one more piece that we need to cut. I know I'm like being crazy about the cutting. I'm not sure if anybody else does that either, but if it doesn't line up exactly before I cut it, I can spend like 2 or 3 minutes getting it just perfect. Which is pretty much what I do. Okay. So these are going to be our bottom accent, front and back. So these pieces are going to be these pieces that go here. So that's what I just cut. Okay, so I'm not the only person who like gets crazy about the cutting. So we've done the sides, we've done the bottom. So we've done the sides, we've done the side accents, the bottom accents, and of the entire front. So the next thing we need to do is we need one pocket piece. If you remember, I said that we have one waterproof canvas pocket piece that we need. And we also need to make sure that we cut our straps. So let me get another piece of waterproof canvas and we'll do that. Okay, so the straps, what I did is I just have you cut it. I just cut mine the width of the fabric. I know that it's going to be long, but I just cut 2 pieces. And then we're going to have to cut a piece of waterproof canvas to put inside, like I mentioned before. So inside of our strap here, we're going to cut that little sliver of a piece. We should be cutting 2 of these little pieces to reinforce the fabric. So let's do those pieces first. And by the way, because they're in the inside of the strap, you don't need to use your good waterproof canvas. You can use Decor Bond in the fabric. So in some of the previous boxes, I've given you like Deco Bond, and I've said to you, fuse the Deco Bond down the middle or the whole thing. So use what you have. Like I said, you can use interfacing. I just hate interfacing things, but you can definitely cut a piece of a strip of interfacing and use that instead. I'm not an ironing kind of person. So that, I guess that's really what I mean. I don't really like to iron things. And it's so bad that sometimes instead of ironing something, I'll stick it in my dryer. I can see you, Arnetta, on YouTube. I don't know. Can you guys see who's on Facebook and who's on YouTube? Hey, Della. What you making? I know you're making dinner. I shouldn't ask you to type, but I know what you're making. So what I'm doing off camera here is I'm just clipping the ends of this. I know it sounds like there's noise, but you can't see anything. So I'm just clipping along that edge. And that's because, remember I said to you, when you fold it, you will get like a little bit of bowing. So what I try to do is clip it along the edges. And then what I do is I fold it in half again and I clip it again. And the only reason I'm doing this is it's the strap and I have to cut it the entire width. So I do it and then I clip it again. Just like that. And I put a lot of clips. I don't know why. It was longer and then I clip it again. So then that way when I cut the straps, they're more or less even. It won't matter because I'm going to draw a center line. So even if one comes out shorter, but you can see now that all these edges in here are matching up. And that way I won't get like the, the little divot sometimes that you get if you don't cut it straight. So let's cut those straps. And I'm going to I cut 2 of them. Ooh, everybody, we're going to Della's house. She's cooking. I love Alfredo. And I don't eat too many crustaceans, but I do eat shrimp. I'm not a lobster person. Anybody here like lobster? I'm not a lobster person. And I don't like... yes, yum. Now she's making me hungry because I didn't eat dinner. But I'm not a lobster person, but I hear it's yummy. And I'm not really, like clams and mussels. Although I do like paella. So I don't know. But I don't eat the clams or the mussels. So I don't know if anybody else. So everybody's welcome. Okay. Dinner at Della's house. You love lobster. Oh, you can't afford it. But what's interesting is it is expensive, but you do kind of get a lot of meat in there. But what's interesting about it is I don't like lobster, but when I go to New Orleans, I love having the crawfish. I love being there for crawfish season, which to me is a mini lobster, right? And the shrimp is kind of like a mini lobster too. So I don't know. Okay, so we're going to cut the strap. Now, in order for the strap piece to have a bigger border, and it's not going to come out even. So when you cut your strap, and I can show you this, you can see that this piece is bigger. And I can tell you the dimensions is no big deal. It's 3 inches wide for the waterproof canvas on the bottom, and it's 2 inches for the top. And when I fold it in half, this, because it's 2 inches, will end up being 1 inch. And this, when I fold it into the center, it'll end up being an 1.5 inches. So I make it 3 inches. And that's because when I sew this, I want to give, I don't know if you could see it, over here, I want to give about 1/4 inch so it looks like piping. So over here, it's a pretty big extension outside, and it's about 1/4 inch on each side. And I did that intentionally because I wanted to kind of break up the print, right? If I made it any smaller, it would just look like it was, the straps were on here, and it would look like when you put the straps on, the print is off. But by putting that bordering on, it creates sort of like a piping kind of effect. And by making it wider, it makes this piece stand out. So I hope that makes sense. So I like this thicker border. We've done this type of strap before where we've made them the same size. So we've done the top 1 inch and the bottom of 1 inch. We've also done it where we've only made it slightly bigger. So instead of 2 inches, maybe you do 2.5 inches. But I like the effect of the 3-inch wide on the bottom. Um, if you're somebody who has a rivet machine, you can also put rivets on here. We sew it down, but you can put rivets on here, which also give it a nice accent. But that's why I'm making the waterproof canvas wider. I also did not want to make a strap because it is such a big bag. I don't think a 1-inch strap on this would have been sturdy enough. And if you put something heavy, I didn't want it to cut into your shoulder. So that's why I made it 3 inches. So really the width of the final strap is 3 inches because it's the, sorry, it's 1.5 inch strap because it's the width of the bottom material. So that's just a little background of the thought process that I had. So I'm going to just cut this strap, these 2 straps now. And I'm not moving my ruler until I know it's totally cut through, right? Because the last thing you want to do is move the ruler and then you have to go back, and then sometimes it cuts it a little strange if you don't get right in the exact same spot. You can use a scissor as well. So I'm just going to cut. For some reason, I can see this is off. Okay. And these are going to get cut down. So because the waterproof canvas, I think, is 60 inches long, but the fabric itself is only like 44 inches. But it's just easier to do it this way. You know, just cut this the width than having you cut it, you know, a little, you know, the same width. So I just cut it this way. And then I cut it down. I'll leave this like this for now, but after I'm done, I lay the fabric on top and then I cut it shorter. So that's the way I do it. Yeah, you love that strap. Yeah. It's a great strap, and it's especially it's also a strap that you can use on the side of a bag. So we did it on the front and the back, but you can definitely do a strap if you wanted to that goes across the side this way. And it's really nice because if you don't have hardware, you can still create a nice looking strap. So those are the strap pieces. I clip them together. And then I need to cut that little sliver of a piece. So I will cut 2 of those also. And they are slightly smaller. So this piece is 1 inch, but because if you make this 1 inch, when you fold it over this way, you're not going to get that fold because the edge of the fabric is going to push it out. So what I do is whenever I'm putting something on the inside like this, I usually cut it about 1/8 of an inch smaller. So since my final measurement is going to be 1 inch, I'm having you cut this strip at 7/8 of an inch. So I have you cut it 1/8 of an inch small. So if you're going to do a strap and it's 2 inches wide, you do it 1 7/8 inches wide. So 1/8 of an inch, and that seems to work very well. 1/4 of an inch is a little bit, I think, a little bit too small because it doesn't hit the edges the way you want it to hit. And when you sew over it, you don't get the reinforcement that you need. So I'm just going to cut 2 strips here. You can use, because this is not seen, if you have scrap waterproof canvas and you don't want to waste about what you maybe consider waste about 2 inches of your waterproof canvas doing this, you can take waterproof canvas in the same way we talked about foam. And with foam, we said, oh, well, you can actually take 2 pieces of foam and sit them next to each other like this and zigzag stitch. With waterproof canvas, you can actually overlay them like this. And if you have a straight stitch machine, you can straight stitch. You don't have to zigzag it because it's not that thick like foam. And then you can put it together. So I've done bags where I've pieced pieces of waterproof canvas because I may have 1 inch here and 1 inch there, and I've pieced them together. I actually, sometimes if it's a long piece of fabric or waterproof canvas that I have, I will piece them together like you would binding. And then I roll them up and save them. So then I can just grab it and cut whatever length I need. if I'm doing a strap. And by the way, I do that also for me on a vinyl strap as well, because vinyl has a stretch. Most vinyl has a stretch, and over time, the strap will stretch if you don't cut it the right way, right? So if you cut it and it's with the stretch, so it goes like this, as you carry your bag and it heats up, of course, over time, the strap gets longer and longer and longer. By doing this strip in the middle, it stops that stretch. So it stops your bag straps from stretching. So these I'm going to put, I have to definitely put a clip on these because these will end up in the garbage because I won't remember. So we have the front of the strap, and these are going to be the back of the strap, and then the little piece that goes inside of it when we fold it in half. Okay. So the next thing we have to do is we're going to have to cut that extra zipper pocket. I mean, the extra pocket for the slip pocket on the inside. So I only need one. So I'm going to open up my waterproof canvas. I'm looking at my bag because I want to make sure I get all the pieces. And I will go back through it and make sure I have all the pieces. So we need to cut a piece here for that pocket piece. So you can grab one of your pocket pieces, the fabric pieces, and clip it on here like I did before and cut it. You can also take your rulers. So I can take, my ruler like this, put one here and put one going across. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I tend to, even though the other one's a shortcut, I'm always afraid that if I cut one wrong, I then end up cutting two wrong because I use the pattern piece to do it, that piece to do it. So I usually cut them separately. So let's cut this. So I just want to make sure I have enough. I don't think it's here, if I measured it right. All right, so we're going to cut this. I'll take my other ruler. I'm going to stick it over here. And I just want to see where I am. And I'm just going to cut that pocket. And I am taking into account the selvage. I have to cut that piece off. So I am trying to take into account that I have that selvage piece there. So I'm giving myself plenty of room for that. Okay. So I'll cut this piece first. I know it's straight. And then I'll cut this piece. And that'll be my inside pocket, the reverse side of my inside pocket. And then I just have to cut off that selvage at the top. No, it's a lot of pieces. And I just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. So I'll just go back through my pieces to make sure I have all of these pieces. And then we'll go to the interfacing part of this. Okay. Great. So this piece here is going to be for my pocket. So that this is my internal pocket, one of my slip pockets. This is going to be the reinforcement for my strap. This is going to be the bottom of my strap. This piece here is the lining bottom piece. So the lining side bottom piece, right? So on the side, there's a bottom piece for that. Oh, I missed a piece. So that's why I go through the pieces. This is going to be the bottom of my bag. This piece is going to be, this is going to be the front accent piece. So it's the front accent piece, the side accent piece, the front and back of my lining. So those pieces. And I'm missing one other piece. So let's cut that one piece now. And the piece that I'm actually missing is, I thought about it as I was cutting it, the underside of the zipper. So the zipper has a bottom to it, and I didn't cut those two pieces. So when I talk about the underside, it's these pieces right here under the top. And once again, this piece you can cut either from the exterior fabric, so you can cut, you know, 2 extra pieces if you do this bag again and you're using different fabric, or you can even make them both waterproof canvas or whatever your lining piece is. So it's your design. You can do it any way you want. You can make it a different color, whatever you want. So I need to cut those 2 pieces now. So let me just grab my waterproof canvas and cut those 2 pieces. Those are pretty easy. Like I said, I make them shorter than my actual width of the bag, because I like to be able to stick my hand in there and hold that zipper and slide it. So for that reason alone. Once again, you can double this and then cut it in half if it makes it easier for you to do that. I'm just going to cut them separately. I actually ordered some labels that I'm hoping once I get them I can include in the box, but they say actually I ordered a couple, but the one that I was that expressly I think I liked the most was, there's one that says I used a good fabric. Because we talk a lot about, you know, don't use your good fabric when you're making your project for the first time. You can use muslin. You can use an inexpensive, you know, cotton if you want. So even if you're making a vinyl bag, use some cotton to make it so that you know exactly what your structure is. And if you make any mistakes, you know what not to do when you actually cut your bag, you know, do your fabric and sew it up. You know what not to do. So, and everyone's welcome. Zipper. Did I say something other than zipper? I apologize. The zipper closure. I apologize if I said anything else, but that's what we're working on. So I did cut these longer. I cut them the length of my ruler, so I just need to trim them down. It was just easier to cut them the length of my ruler than it was to mark them. So I'm just going to cut off the excess here. And I'm going to do that. Okay, so this was the last pieces that I needed to cut out of my waterproof canvas. So hopefully we got all those pieces cut. We have cut all the pieces. And so now we're going to talk about the interfacing. I'll show you how I interface. And then we'll talk about the foam as well. So the foam pieces, I don't say how to do this. When we go to sew the bag together, that's when I will attach the foam. So I'm not going to attach the foam tonight. So tonight we won't be doing any sewing. I'll show you how to do it when we go to put the bag together. So just cut the pieces of the foam as they're laid out. So I don't think I have to go through cutting foam with you. Your piece is wide, so cut 2 pieces wide. I think somebody said that the measurements were off. I measured 26 by 30, but I think it may be a little bit short. Just make sure when you're cutting it, cut the bottom first. So cut the piece for the bottom first because we want to make sure that goes all the way to the edges. And then the other one we can work with. Okay. So cut your bottom piece first. So that way you make sure you have enough for the bottom and then we can work with the other ones for those of you who don't have extra foam in case you have to correct it. I don't think it was off by that much, but we can talk about that tomorrow when we attach it. I just want to make sure because the bottom is waterproof canvas, I just want to make sure that that bottom piece, you have enough to take you all the way to the edges and attach it. And that to me is critical. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I interface. So I do what's known as block interface. I do not, and it doesn't really matter. I don't cut the actual piece of the interface. If you want to cut the interface, you can also cut the interface at the same time. And I'll show you what I mean by that. You can cut the interface at the same time that you cut your, what do you call it? That you cut your fabric. So if you cut the interface at the same time, you know that it's exactly the same measurement. But I do block fusing on my interface. And the reason that I do block fusing is because I think it's easier for me. And then I square up everything. But that's just me personally. You don't have to do that. So I'll show you 2 ways that you can do it. And then we can go from there. I'm just going to cut any interface. So let me just cut a piece right here real quick. And I've got rolls of this stuff. Well, I don't have rolls, but interfacing and foam and waterproof canvas. Okay. So I'm going to get my ironing board here. I'm going to make sure my iron gets heated up. I use steam. This particular interface that was in the Woven Fix, it's very nice. It's thicker than SF101. It gives a nice drape to the bag and the feel to the bag, but it does require that you apply heat a little bit longer than you would with an SF101. So Arnetta says she was thinking about quilting the fabric, and then Della said, ooh, quilting would look pretty. It definitely would, especially if you use like a maybe an accent thread that would stand out. It definitely would be very pretty. And it's clean lines, right? Because they're like little peaks. So you can pick where you want to do it. You can also do like, I know people do like the freeform quilting, which would also look very nice on there. Okay, so I'm laying my interfacing on my cutting mat and I lay it with, I don't know if you can see, one side is shiny and one side is matte. So what I have is I have the shiny side. If you can see it, it's facing up. You want to be careful of the glue if you're going to iron it this way. I'm going to turn mine over so then the glue will stick to my cutting mat and not to my pieces. But if you want to see what you're doing, you can definitely keep it, shiny side up. So in my case, I want to show you. So mine is shiny side up. Normally, I will lay my fabric wrong side down like this, and then lay my interfacing with the shiny side. So the side that has the glue, I would stick it down like this, and you can see the fabric through it, so you know where it lines up. But because I want to show it to you, I'm doing it with, the shiny side up. So this is the glue. Just make sure, and we're going to not get too close to the edges so that we can flip it over later. So the way that I do it, I block fuse it, is I put the first piece of fabric on here. Before I do that, I will turn it to the wrong side, make sure my iron is hot, and I will iron out any wrinkles. So this is where I iron out the wrinkles. If it's a piece of fabric that's very wrinkled, I will iron that before I even get to this part, because when I'm measuring it, I need it as flat as possible. So if I get too much steam, I'm going to turn the steam off, because you can't see. I don't think you want a puff of smoke. So now that I've done that and I've warmed that fabric up and I've taken out my wrinkles, I'm going to lay this on here, and I try to match up the edges, right? If I have a clean edge, I try to match it up. And then what you're going to do is be very careful not to get to the end. So I'm just going to start in the middle, and you're supposed to hold this down and give it some steam. But like I said, the woven fix is wonderful. It's got a nice body to it and a nice drape. However, it does take a little while longer to adhere, so please be patient. If you have a press, like some people have the press, like they use, like you may have a Cricut that you do t-shirts on and things like that. Or you may just have a press. I have a press, and that actually works a lot better with this, because you can put it down, set it to a certain temperature, put it down, let it rest, and then lift it up when it beeps. So I'm just holding this down. And what you're hearing is the water from my iron, because I have a Teflon sheet on here to make sure things don't stick. And then I do this. Now, if you notice, I'm not going over the edge because I don't want to get this glue on the tip of my iron. I'm going to fix that, because when I'm done, I'm going to flip this completely over to the reverse side. And then I'm going to iron it from the reverse side, and then I don't have to worry about it. So my fabric is right side up. I can check it. I can see that it started to stick in here, but because I don't want to get to the end, when I'm done, I will turn the whole thing over, and I will give it another good iron from the reverse side and make sure that I catch those ends. So that's the first piece. So this is how I block fuse. I then take the next piece. I leave a very small gap. I actually have a rip in this. I cut it all strange like. Okay. I leave a very small gap because I want to be able to cut this out, right? So I leave about maybe 1/8 of an inch between the two pieces. And I do that. And then what I do is I do the same thing on this side. So I forgot to iron my fabric, but you would iron your fabric and then do this. What I noticed, or what works for me also, is if you leave 1/8 of an inch, because the fabric has height, it adds to that height. So even if you put this in the middle, it tends not to stick to the iron, right? Because it's not, the fabric is keeping it off, and it's only about 1/8 of an inch apart. But if you don't want to do that, just get as close as you can to the edge, and then when we're done, we'll flip it over. And then they normally tell you to hold the iron on the piece, not to move it around. I'm very bad because I move it around. It's like that fidgeting thing I got going on. So I tend to move it around like this. But that's because when you move the iron around on your piece, it stretches the fabric. So that's why they tell you not to do that. Okay, so they'll tell you just hold it. Don't drag it like this, because it distorts and stretches the fabric. So they tell you just let it rest on the fabric. And it's about 15 seconds, and then you just let it rest. And like I said, because I have my fabric right side up, I don't want to get to that edge. So now that I have that, once it's mostly sealed, I then flip this over to the back, and I don't have to worry about those edges and the glue, and then I will iron it from the reverse side, and I can go to the edges. I do have a Teflon sheet on this little ironing board, and that's because I don't have to worry about it sticking to my ironing board. I have another ironing board that I just use for clothing, and so it's fabric covered, but this way I don't have to worry about it. Okay. And you can also see like there's puckers in here. So when those puckers come out, come up, if you lay the iron on it, that's usually where it's not adhered. So then you just do this. So you would just keep doing this for all the pieces that you have. That's how you would adhere this. I don't know if you heard that rip. That was me ripping it up off the Teflon sheet where it's stuck. but you would still continue to do this for all the pieces that you have. And then you go back and cut it out. So I do all the pieces this way, and then I go back and cut them out. I will show you if you wanted to. This will come out from the previous month. Yeah. So in the for those of you who you may be reading the comments, may not know, each month I try to give what I call goodies, but I include things. Sometimes they're sewing related, sometimes they're not. But I include goodies in, and I always talk about the silicone sheet on my mat when I was doing the sew-alongs in the private group. And so I thought for those people who may not have tried it, I would send it. It's actually a baking sheet, so it's something you would use, and it is a baking sheet. So if you can find those baking sheets, that's really what we're using. But it's like a silicone. So then what happens is it doesn't stick, and that way you're not messing up your surface. This cutting mat is actually just one of those cutting boards. It's actually a cutting board that I purchased when my daughter went to college, so she would have a cutting board. I mean, an ironing board. So she would have an ironing board to iron her clothes. I don't know why I think college kids iron their clothes, but I got it from the Dollar General or the Dollar Tree, and then I just covered it. So it's not, it's. She's like, oh, I don't need that. Throw it out. I'm like, it would be great in my sewing room when I just want to iron something quickly, and I didn't have to make one out of wood. So that's what this ironing board is that I'm using. So I just want to get this done for these two pieces, and you'll see this is the front and back. Once again, this is not sticking, so I'm going to go back and just let my iron rest right there, and hopefully it'll then stick. As I mentioned, this one happens to be this interfacing. You can try it if you use SF101. Try it against that. See if you see the different thickness. It's hard to show it on camera, but the body that it gives your pieces is really nice. So I tend to use this one, which is Woven Fix from Cereal Bag Maker. And I also use Sew Fuse in the boxes. So you may get Sew Fuse, which comes from Monica from Castine Handcrafted. And so those are the two interfaces that I actually like. This one, like I said, has a little bit more body, and I do like it a lot. But if you have a press, I think it works better if you have a press. But it works as an iron as well. Yeah. So Della says she has one of these. Yeah, I mean, don't sleep on the Dollar General and the Dollar Tree. They have some pretty handy things that you can get. And they're inexpensive, and even if you get, it's not, some things are not meant to last your lifetime, honestly. But if you get something and you're going, oh well, I didn't want it because I need something that's going to last me 50 years. I don't think I'm going to be around 50 years. Maybe when I was 20, I'd be around in 50 years, but I'm not 20 anymore. And but if it's something that you're like, listen, I don't want to spend a lot of money on it. Also, if you want to do something that you need to use an iron for, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, like I know sometimes people will use an iron in crafting. I don't know, like vinyl, like when you iron on that vinyl. I don't really like it, but it's the Pellon vinyl that you iron on. They may use it for that, but sometimes the vinyl, if you don't do it right, can get stuck to your iron. So if you don't want to use a good iron, like your good fabric, you can usually pick up a very good iron from the Dollar Tree for a little bit of money, and it works really well. Or Dollar General, or we used to have over here, it used to be called Dollar Tree, but now everything's $1.25. So I don't know. They never changed. I think they just put Dollar Plus in there now. Yeah. Just keep saying it, Della. Just keep saying I need a heat press. Go to sleep and say it like you're dreaming about it, and let him hear you. Maybe maybe he'll say, "Oh my goodness, I gotta get her that press." She's starting to dream about it. I have I don't have the square ones that a lot of people have, which they use for t-shirts. I have one that I ordered from Amazon. It's a Sunbeam, I think it is, and I ordered that one. I didn't get the square one. I was trying to look at surface area, like how much could I put in there at one time. You know, sort of like when you buy a washer or dryer, you're like, how much can I do at one time using this version of it? Yeah. Oh, it definitely works better. That's fine. If anybody, if your husband listens to me, let me know how you got that to work because nobody in my house listens to me. You know, it's like, oh, you're speaking again? Okay. All I hear is blah, 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 blah. You know, so let me know if he listens to me. I'm going to tell him Della's husband listens to me. So you got to listen to me. Okay. So I think we're pretty good. I'll come back later when we're off camera. Um, and now because I did this, you know, I block view. So you would do all your pieces like that with your interface. And then all I simply do is I just cut off the interface. I get as close as I can, you know, without cutting into the fabric. If you want, you can remeasure it, but I can actually see the interface. So I can see it. So I just cut it and I just cut it off. I use my rotary cutter. If you want to use a scissor, you can. It'll just take a little bit longer, but I just, you know, of course, as if it's a white fabric, it's kind of going to be hard to see, but you can definitely see where the fabric stops and the interface begins. So that's what you would do. And you would go all the way around. I have to come back in and do this, but I'll take it to my heat press and do it. And then you're just going to do that all the way around for all the pieces, right? So I'll just do these two pieces, and then I'll show you one final thing, which is what I was talking about. If you wanted to cut this interfacing at the same time that you cut your fabric pieces out. Oops. Okay, I got a little happy and I cut into this piece here, but luckily it was just the interfacing. So I'm just glad it wasn't a finger. Yeah. The nice thing about yeah, space is always an issue. You know, the more pieces you have, the more space you have. But that's the nice thing about the one that I got, which was the Sunbeam, is that it folds. It's like a clam. It folds like this, and it's relatively light, so you can pick it up and stick it in a closet, or you can stick it under something once you finish using it. The bigger ones, like the big square ones, are like the room. And that was another thing I thought about when I got the Sunbeam one. I said, oh, I can pick this up and stick it on the, you know, on its side on the floor. It locks closed, and or I could stick it in a closet. So my actual sewing room where I sew is very small. It's 10 by 15. So it's a very small room, and I have my industrial in there, and that's where I sew, you know, when I'm not doing this. When I decide I want to use my industrial machine because I want to sew a vinyl bag or something, I will go up there and I have my TV. But it is a very small room, so I understand the space. And it has built-in bookshelves, so I lose wall space in there as well. And I have two windows. So it's, you know, you can't do anything. There's one, maybe two walls that are actual walls that you can do something with. So you can put like a bookshelf up. So I actually put mounted bookshelves, a little shelves to the wall to hold some of my fabric, and then I use the built-in bookshelves. So, yeah. So Della, it's funny that you said that. My daughter moved 3 weeks ago now, maybe. So she moved. I live in New York, so she moved to Manhattan. I live in Westchester, so I live right outside of New York. So she's like maybe 30 minutes from me. And so she moved into Manhattan, but she comes home every weekend because of her job. So there's a location that she does work at, which is in Westchester. So most of the locations are in the city because she knew she was going to move there. But there's one that she does, which is like 15 minutes from the house. And every time she comes home, she looks at me and says, "I'm surprised you didn't take my bedroom and make it into another sewing room." And I said to her, well, I didn't want you to feel as if I was trying to get rid of you, but it's just a matter of time. So it's funny you said you took the master bedroom. Um, it's space. I mean, if you have it, I've lived in an apartment. I've never lived in a studio, but I've lived in an apartment where it was very, very limited space because of New York real estate. And you just make what you have to do, make it work. Oh, you did? Yeah. Take a look at the sunbeam. And like I said, I uh, I got it from Amazon. I don't need the encouragement, Della. Or maybe I'll just say, well, Della said it's okay. She said it's okay. So let me just quickly show you what I meant about if you wanted to cut it with your fabric. So if you want to cut the interfacing the same time you cut your fabric, what you would do is just simply lay your interfacing down. It doesn't really matter if it's right side up or wrong side up because you're not fusing it in any way, right? You're just needing to cut it. And then what you would do is you would take your fabric. So I'm gonna take a piece of scrap fabric here, like this piece, right? And you'd put them together, just like that. So let's say you went and you were cutting your piece. So you'd get your ruler out, and I'll just cut a small piece here. And you would just cut your piece like this. So because your interfacing is underneath your fabric, and you can clip it, put clips to hold it together around the sides, you would then cut your piece like this. And then when you were done, you'd have both your interfacing and your fabric at the same time. So you don't have to cut it multiple times. For me, what I find is when I personally do that, and I'm just going to tell you my experience and then give it a try for yourself because you may not have the same experience. But you want to make sure that it doesn't slip, right? So that's the first thing you want to make sure. For me, whenever I do this, I still end up with a little piece of interfacing, which means I still have to trim it. So I go, well, if I have to trim it, I might as well block fuse it and do the trimming then. But your experience could be different than mine. So it's something that you should give a try and see how you feel. But you can definitely lay your fabric. Doesn't matter if it's right side up, wrong side up, because we're not fusing it. Lay your interfacing, put the piece that you want to cut on top of it. If you need to pin it or clip it, do that, and then cut out your pieces. And then you will have your interfacing and your pieces cut at the same time. And then all you have to do is iron. If you have limited space, this may also become an issue for you. So you may not be able to do it if you have limited space. So we've cut out all of our pieces for tonight. I've shown you how to interface. When you're cutting your foam, make sure to cut the bottom first and then cut the other pieces. If you don't have enough foam, we can talk about adjustments we can make in the sewing process. It's not major adjustments. It's just enough to make sure that it works the way that we want it to work. You're only going to interface the fabric pieces. You will not be interfacing any of the waterproof canvas. So that means only the pieces that are like this are you going to interface. Do not interface the waterproof canvas. And if you want to, and you want to get the wrinkles out, by all means, on the right side of the waterproof canvas, you may either use steam to heat it up and get the wrinkles out, but you can also you can iron it, right? So put it on like a low setting and you can iron it. If it's on cotton, then do it pretty quickly, iron it pretty quickly. Don't worry, it will feel soft when you do that. Don't worry about that. When it cools off, it'll go back to the same structure. Okay. So that's what we're going to do for tonight. I'm going to leave you guys with some homework, which means that tomorrow you should have everything interfaced except for the foam. Just cut out the pieces, but you should have all of your fabric interfaced and you should have all of your pieces cut. If you can't get to that piece by tomorrow and you want to sew along tomorrow, then just cut the pieces for the exterior of the bag. So you're just going to cut, because that's all we're going to work on tomorrow. So that may make it easy for some of you. So tomorrow, we're just going to need the front, the bottom, the sides, the bottom, which is waterproof canvas, the straps. Okay, so that's what we're going to need for tomorrow. So if you do your straps, cut your straps, and all of your exterior pieces, you will be all set to begin tomorrow with us. And then tomorrow night, um, or the next day, you can cut the lining pieces at your leisure. So if you want to, if you still want to participate and you want to try to do it with me, just have those pieces cut and whatever needs to be interfaced, like the fabric pieces, interface them. And then the next day we'll do the lining piece. So the next day we'll talk about the zipper and putting the pockets in and the lining. So that'll be on the last day, and then putting it together. That day is usually the longest day because there's a lot of the putting it together together piece. There's a lot of steps before we get to the putting it together piece. Tomorrow, doing these straps will be, if you want to just watch first and see how it's done, but putting in the straps tomorrow is something that I think you guys, if you can not make it, watch it on replay because it's interesting, because we're not necessarily sewing it together, and then the way I construct the bottom pieces together to make sure that we have one continuous row of stitches. So I stitch it flat so that we get the 2 rows continuous and it looks neater. And then I sew up one of the sides. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. I've really, really, really enjoyed being with you guys tonight. I've enjoyed the commentaries that we have going on. I know, you know, several of the people are actually, all of you are subscribers, but I know other people will see it who are not subscribers. But this is really a very, very fun group, and I'm loving this experience and this journey that I'm taking with you. So thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we will definitely talk again tomorrow. Bye-bye.